They say you are what you eat, so I don't eat chicken feet. But I love me some of Grandma's pickled beets. Well, cut it up, put it in the pan, throw it over your shoulder and see where it lands right here in Farmer's Kitchen. Maters, taters, beans and corn, the cows in the barn and the sheep's been shorn, kids in the barnyard chasing Grandpa's chicken. Spices, slices, cuts and dices, gonna slash your grocery prices right here in Farmer's Kitchen. Help you grow your garden good with recipes to suit your mood. Try some grub you've never tried before. Smash it with a wooden mallet, gonna educate your palate. Right here in Farmer's Kitchen, in Tim Farmer's Country Kitchen. We're gonna cook something good now.
Hello and welcome to the Farmer's Kitchen. We're the farmers, and we're in our outdoor kitchen tonight.
Yes, we are.
Your outdoor kitchen can be anywhere you are. All you have to have is a heat source. And tonight, we have an open fire, and we have some charcoal over here. And we're gonna make a wonderful, beautiful meal. You can do this with venison. You can do this with beef if you don't have venison. Equally delicious.
Yes.
Although I might add, I prefer the venison.
I do too, and that's your last year's deer, a nice deer.
That is a bit of a tenderloin. How much do I think about this recipe? I think so much about it that I'm going to use the precious tenderloin.
And you are you're cautious with your tenderloin.
Oh yeah.
I know that.
Not just for anything. So we're going to talk about the history of hunter's stews. A lot of these recipes were brought over. Some of them are just so cut and dry. It's just with the things that you have around you, which we have in our kitchen today. But we also have some friends in the Amish world that shared a bread secret with us.
Yes, they
and
did.
We're going to make a loaf of bread. Let's go ahead and get that started, Mrs. Farmer, if you will. There's nothing better than a fresh piece of yeast bread.
And I made one of these earlier and you ate half of it. So are you
did
still
at that.
hungry?
I am still hungry. I hope the flies don't get it all.
Okay, this is already ready. This is the process. It's been a couple hours, so I'm going to walk you through from the start. And I used my bread machine because it has a dough
Hook.
Yes, thank you, a dough hook on it. And what I did, I started off with 2 cups of warm water, and that's like 110 to like 112 degrees, usually is about right. And I put in 2/3 of a cup of sugar, and I kind of stirred that up. Then I added 1.5 tablespoons of yeast. Stirred that up, and I let that sit for probably 5 or 10 minutes, kind of let it all get together. Then I added 1.5 tablespoons of salt to it and 1/4 cup of oil. And I used olive oil, I like olive oil. Mix that up, and now I have 5 cups of flour that I'm gonna put in it. So that's when I got my mixer going, and I put in half of that, about 2.5 cups, and let that mix up for a while. And I slowly added in the last 2.5 cups, so I had 5 cups in there. Got that till it actually starts banging around in the pan when you get about ready. Took it out and I put it on a board and kneaded it with probably the last half cup of flour that I had. Took that, and you'll see I put it in a bowl after I kneaded it all together, and I let that sit for an hour with a piece of wrap across it. After an hour, I took it and divided it in 2. This actually makes 2 loaves. So I took the 2 and I took one of them and put it into our pan, into a ball, let it sit for another hour. And here's what we got after that.
350 degrees for 25
30 minutes,
so.
yeah.
So we're going to cook it outside. It is an oven. Think about this as an oven. If you say 350 degrees, then that's 350 degrees. How many is that on the bottom and how many on the top?
14 to 7.
You're brilliant.
Kelly told me I cheated.
14 and 7. So
right.
what do? We've already got our charcoal ready. So if you follow those steps, you're going to have your beautiful loaf of bread. So we're going to go ahead and put that up, and let's put 7 on the bottom, 14 on the top. Now the miraculous thing about this is how amazingly accurate this little trick is. So we got 14 on the top, 7 on the bottom. Guess what? It's going to be 350 degrees. Somebody asked a really good question the other day. They said, do you preheat your cast iron like you would your oven?
Yes.
This recipe would be tough because you're raising the bread in that dish. You can't take it out or it'll fall. But in most dishes, if you want to preheat your pan, all you gotta do is put those coals on the bottom, put the top on, and it will preheat. So then you put whatever your recipe in that pan, and it is preheated.
Good idea.
That'd be hard with bread.
Right.
So what you would do in this case is you would let the bread go maybe just a little bit longer because that pan is not heated up. But you'd be amazed how quickly these coals will heat that pan up.
Oh yeah.
To 350 degrees.
That's right.
Now this is probably around 2 pounds, 1.5 pounds of beautiful venison. Now that was a deer that I took last year. A lot of people say, oh, that old buck is gonna be strong.
No.
If you process that meat right, and you take that silver seam off, and you get that deer out of the woods, I don't think it does the deer a favor to hang it for long periods of time, because sometimes that flavor will become more intense, that gamey flavor. I think the quicker you can get it out of the field and into the freezer, the better tasting deer you're gonna have. This one is amazing. This is a big old buck. He was out of control. His hormones were raging, but his meat is as good and as tender and as sweet tasting as any doe that I've ever taken.
And this is only part of his tenderloin. It was way bigger. We just took a portion of it.
And if you don't have venison, beef will
Right.
work just fine. So Mrs. Farmer, if you will, let's cut this up into bite-sized chunks. Now you talk about lean meat.
That's good looking meat.
That is
Wow.
beautiful meat. Now a lot of people will hunt deer for trophies, and a lot of folks have kind of gotten away from the meat. When it comes to me hunting, I look at not so much the rack. I like a big deer if I see it, obviously. But I want that meat, that wonderful, tender meat.
Oh yeah.
Now what I'm gonna do, my intent is not to cook this meat, but just to brown it. Just to lightly brown it. Get that nice brown flavor in there. Now this, again, is tenderloin. Backstrap is the proper word. So this is gonna be a more tender cut and will actually cook faster. So this is about a 2-hour process. I'll have to put a couple logs on. Nikki's gonna start peeling vegetables while I'm doing this. Something about cooking outside. The flavors seem more intense. You have that little added smoke rolling around through there. So, I'm gonna take 64 ounces of beef broth. Got a little bit of salt in there and a little bit of pepper. Let that boil. As we travel around and talk to folks all over the world about cooking and about the origins of recipes, I was very curious about the European methods of cooking a hunter's stew per se. Now, if you talk to someone in Poland about a hunter's stew, they're going to give you a very different idea, but it's still amazing. They cook something they call bigos.
Bigos?
B-I-G-O-S. It's a Polish hunter's stew. They use sauerkraut. They're gonna be familiar with this. Guess what they sweeten it with?
Apples.
Uh-huh.
I
You remember
love
the
apples.
pheasants I made you with apples one time?
I do.
They also use prunes. So that sweet and that sour is so important. A lot of different ways you can do it. And they have different spices. Sometimes they use nutmeg, sometimes they use allspice.
That sounds good.
Coriander. It is very good. I'm gonna make
Sounds
that for
delicious.
you. Bigos, B-I-G-O-S. Now, then there's hunter stews here, and a lot of people put the claim on, you know what, burgoo. There's folks in Illinois that claim they own burgoo. It started there. There's folks in Western Kentucky that claim it's there. There's people here in Lawrenceburg who have a burgoo festival. The bottom line, that is a hunter's stew. People would come together and they'd bring whatever they had. A lot of times it was 3 or 4 meats. They'd have squirrel, turkey, venison, whatever, and then whatever they put in that. So there are different people who have different ideas about this thing, but I find it funny. Bigos, B-I-G-O-S, and burgoo both have that B, you know what I'm
That's
saying?
interesting. I see what you're saying, yeah.
But you wonder if somebody was making a hunter stew and forgot the European pronunciation.
Just said it wrong?
And instead of saying bigos, they said burgoo.
I like
Who knows?
that. I
That's
think
a
you're,
theory out there.
I like your theory.
But anyway, what we've got, some fresh carrots, some fresh yellow sweet onions, some russet potatoes, and you can't go wrong there.
I did 3 potatoes and I did 5 carrots.
3 potatoes, 5 carrots,
And one big
one
onion.
great big onion. So we're coming up on a boil over here, and we don't have to wait for it to boil, but let's go ahead and put that in there. But before we do, let's talk about the origins of this particular hunter stew. Years ago, I met a man called Raoul, and we've heard about Raoul and the magic that he had. He was a French chef, had a restaurant in Lyon, had a staff of 60, swimming pool, cooked for kings and queens and movie stars. He took me under his wing and he started telling me to smell this, taste this, combine these two, try this fennel. He introduced me to fennel, and I was like, fell in love with it. So one thing that he said when he used his venison, usually it was my venison, but he loved it so much when I had venison, and he would take currant jelly, bouillon base, and then some red wine. So to that 64 ounces to get that nice yeasty taste that you can't hardly explain, and to get this umami effect in the end. When you have the red currant jelly,
I think Holly wants some jelly.
Holly wants red currant jelly.
She would love a carrot. I got carrots.
Okay, nice to see you,
Yeah,
Holly. So when you have that red wine, red currant jelly, a really good bouillon type thing going on, a beef-based bouillon, you got something magic. So when we add those things together with some salt and pepper, you don't have to do a whole lot of seasonings. Now I'll take some of my dry rub and put in there. I like it's got a little cayenne pepper, got some sweet stuff in there to get the sweet and sour and the savory and all that stuff going together. It's just kind of magic. But those three things, 15 years ago, we did this on Kentucky Field. 15 years ago, a loose kind of thing with this right here, but that whole thing was brought about by my memory of Raoul, and that's what cooking does. That's how cooking affects you. You remember combinations, and you put it into something else later, and you got magic. Sounds like hay's on its way too.
You know what? That's why she was hollering. She
knows.
heard him coming. She heard the hay
You'll
coming.
see the hay bell coming by here in a minute. All right, let's go ahead and put the red wine in. Go ahead with your bouillon. That's probably a tablespoon and a half. That's probably, I would say, 3.5 tablespoons. Now, as the tractor rolls in the background, this is optional. I like mushrooms. Nikki likes mushrooms. I couldn't find any fresh, so we just got some portobellos. Put about 1.5 cups in there, 2 cups. Man, we're gonna eat on this for days. All right, let's check on this. An oven's an oven. Ho, 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 ho.
Beautiful.
We're gonna let that set just a second. Then we're gonna hot potato that out of there. And we got just a little while till that cooks and gets just right. Typically, it takes about 2 hours. Get it up to a boil, then turn it down to a good simmer, and then you're gonna have you something special in just a little while. Now, since day one of our television shows down through the years, we've always featured musicians. Tim Farmer's Homemade Jam is not something you eat out of a jar. Tim Farmer's Homemade Jam is a studio where we record musicians established and up and coming. These would fall under the very established folks. In fact, Gary Nichols and Billy Droz are two outstanding artists. Gary has won a Grammy. Billy has been up for one. And when these guys combine forces, they're something special. They have some musicians that are amazing. You got Mike Sumner on the banjo, James Saliga, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, on the mandolin, and Greg Martin on the bass. When they get together
Magic.
in one room, wow. So let's listen to these guys right now on Tim Farmer's Homemade Jam.
Howdy, horse, and thank you, ma'am. It's finally time for Homemade Jam.
Gary Nichols,
Hey, Tim.
in the studio. So I've been listening to you a long time.
Okay.
I've been watching you in a long time.
Okay.
There's a bunch of questions I want to ask you.
Okay.
Was it inevitable? Muscle shows, there you are in the heart of it. How important was that for your taste? For what were you surrounded about as a kid? What do you remember hearing as a kid that the first thing that entered your mind was, ooh, I want to play that, or I want to mimic that, or what was your earliest influence?
So, I was born in the Shoals. The Shoals consist of 4 cities and 2 counties. Tuscumbia, Sheffield, Muscle Shoals, all on the south side of the Tennessee River, all kind of considered Muscle Shoals, and Florence on the north side of the river. I was born in Tuscumbia, lived in Florence. My uncle, who had been playing the bars all around those towns all of his life, lived with us while my dad traveled. My dad was a construction worker, so he was kind of the man of the house, looking out for my mom and my sisters and myself. And he was a barroom troubadour. He wrote, played songs, sang songs, and he sang his butt off. And so when he'd come home, I'm 3, 4, 5 years old, and see that smoky smelling Strat, and see the tubes light up on the back of his Music Man amp when he'd go to practice.
I got one of those.
It just turned me on.
Oh yeah, there you go.
So that was my first experience. And so whatever music had inspired him, was the first music that I heard. It's a lot of Razzie Bailey, Earl Thomas Conley, you know, some Bob Seger and stuff. And so I just kind of latched on and listened, and I guess I tried to mimic him. My mom bought me a ukulele when I was 11 months old, so I just thought I was supposed to play. That was my favorite toy. By the time I'm 5 years old and I'm big enough to pick up a guitar, now he plays left-handed, strung right-handed, so we could just flip a guitar back and forth to each other. So he'd sat down one day and he played this little boogie woogie riff, and then he handed me the guitar, and I played it back to him, and that's where it started. When I was 6 years old, I joined my first band. Didn't really know what Muscle Shoals music was. I just knew that I was around people that played music, and a lot of them were really, really good.
So, what do you remember learning, say, your first song, something that you wanted to hear and then project? Do you remember learning one particular song, or was it gospel? Or do you have that song?
The first three, and I don't remember which came first, but were Holding Her and Loving You, Robert Burns song that was cut by Earl Thomas Conley, Blue Suede Shoes, and Johnny Be Good.
Wow.
That's the first, and I'm 6 years old singing those songs in a band. And then it was old time rock and roll, and yes, some gospel music. I Shall Not Be Moved was the first song I learned how to sing harmony to, you know, as a young kid. And I mean, I could talk about a lot. Every song I've ever heard's impacted me, I guess, in some way. But those early days, it started with, you know, Johnny Be Good, Blue Suede Shoes, and a cheating song.
You know, I look at your career and you've done everything from, you know, bluegrass bands to country music. I mean, you're what, 36?
Yes, somewhere around there. I was on Mercury Records in 2003 and had a single released in 2004 called Unbroken Ground, and another single. We had a couple singles. I Can't Love You Anymore was another one, and they both kind of bottomed out in the country music world. And then I left that and got called by Mike Henderson of the Steel Drivers when Stapleton left and asked to take that spot, and I did that. But I've always just been a guy with a guitar singing songs. There's two kinds of music in my opinion, Tim, the kind I like and the kind I don't.
You know, I've listened to you from the beginning, and as you get older, you know, our voice changes, and I really like where you're at today. I mean, you know, it takes a while for those pipes to get to where they're going to be. Some people, you know, our age, you're younger than I am, but you know, they start to decline. You feel like, to me, it feels like you're just getting, I don't mean to be obsequious, but I really think I really like where you're at right now.
Without sounding any type of way, I feel like for a long time everything that I was doing was clouded by something. Mm-hmm. So I was never completely focused on any one thing. I had alcohol in my body or drugs in my body, and so I couldn't be my best version of myself. I don't care what you say, you're not thinking as clearly when you have chemicals in your body as you do when you don't. And so now that I've kind of gotten through some of that mess and really focused on my instrument, and with the spirit of not wanting to be one of those singers, and there's nothing wrong with it, that has to drop keys because their voice got deeper. I want my voice to get stronger and continue to get better because I'm focused on it now. So I feel like I'm just in tune. Maybe I'm just more connected to the source. I don't know, but I do feel like I'm probably better than I've ever been right now. This is my song, my first single, written by my buddy Billy Droz, Chris Myers, and Eddie Wilson. It's called Fire in the Dark. 1, 2, 3. Hell of sadness, I can't see a thing. You led me up on a mountaintop, but the mountain was too steep. Oh, the darkness you brought over me, trying to dig out of the cold dark ground, but the hole was way too deep. Devil's daughter had hold of my heart, took away the light and left
dark. Yards in the midnight, falling through the rain. The sin been landlord that turned passion into pain. Ashes and embers, cold flames keep rising high. A wicked woman laughing in the echoes of the night. Yeah, devil's daughter, let go of my heart. Took away the light and left the fire in the dark. Ooh, a fire in the dark. Death, thought you were an angel, but you don't feel a thing. And I found out the hard way, even demons have their wings. So fly away and leave me, go home somebody else. Better yet, go back to hell so I can live to tell the tale. That the devil's daughter had hold of my heart. She took away the light and left the fire in the dark. Ooh, left the fire in the dark.
All right, we're gonna put a little salt in, a little bit of pepper. This is all according to taste. A little bit of my dry rub in there. A little bit of sweet and savory going on there. And a little bit of cayenne. And if you wanted to, if you really wanted to spice this up, you could put more of a Cajun mix or even some jalapenos. But Nikki likes it just like this. Now, one thing about your fire in the house, if you've got a burner, you turn it up. If you're outside and you're not getting enough heat, put a log directly into the fire, push them together, make that flame come up, and all of a sudden, that's your burner. And look what we've got. We got a nice boil going now. We're gonna let this roll just a little while, let rolling boil open. Later we'll cover it, and then we'll let it go for about 2 hours, and you're gonna have something really good. All right, now I want you to look what happens. We lost probably an inch of liquid. It's thickened up. You can put flour if you'd like, or you can put some cornstarch just to thicken that up and give that a beautiful, thick sauce. Oh my goodness, look at that. It just looks beautiful, and the smell is incomprehensible. It's time to serve this bad boy. Now I want you to look at this beautiful, beautiful food here.
I'm very excited.
And cut us a piece of that wonderful
Do it.
bread.
Should we share one because it's so big?
Oh yeah, no, I want a big one.
You want that whole thing?
Oh, you cut the whole heel off.
Yeah, you want that or no?
No, I want another piece. I want a whole piece.
All right, I'll take the
I'm
heel.
starving.
You can eat all that? Oh, wow.
Yeah, I can eat
okay,
all that.
right, butter. That's beautiful.
This is one of our favorite meals. You can do this with venison, or you can do this with beef. Both equally delicious. I gotta say though, I got a taste for venison, and this is something else. If you've got some venison in your freezer, cut it up, get it ready. It's time for the next season around, so clean out your freezer. So tell me.
Can I try?
Yeah.
I got a
know
big
what you
piece of meat.
think.
That meat is amazing. It's delicious.
This is one that stands the test of time. It's getting cold. Get your freezer cleaned out, find you some wonderful venison or beef. And let's, ooh, look, here's what I like to do. Dip the bread
I
in.
already snuck some bread. Oh my goodness.
I'm just telling you.
That is so moist and delicious. Oh wow.
Good country cooking. We have a little country music. Have some bread. We got some venison. What else could you ask for?
Just let me eat.
What if somebody asked you while you're out and about, say you were out shopping for tires,
Yeah, I always shop for tires.
and somebody said, Miss Farmer, where can I get these recipes? You'd probably say,
I say timfarmerscountrykitchen.com.
I've been there. I know exactly what
Lots of good
gazillions
stuff.
recipes.
Yes, yes.
They also ask us quite frequently, how in the world will we get on your Facebook page? Because it's such a
Difficult.
process. How would you do that?
You hit like.
You hit like, that's all there is to it. You know what? Unbelievably, our half hour is up. So that means that we have to eat.
Yes, I can't wait.
So we might say goodbye. So it's all about
Good times.
good friends.
And really good eats. You did it
That's it.
again. You did
This
it
is
again.
Good stuff. I just got to tell you.
Yummy.
It's magic. We have been catering for a lot of years, and I wanted everything to have a specific taste. Therefore, I had to come up with my own products.
Right.
A dry rub, chow chow, and our barbecue sauce are something that we use in all our catering gigs. I developed this barbecue sauce that is not the really thick, syrupy stuff that you get. This has more of a natural, it's got some pepper and onion flavor in it. You can actually see the particulates in there. You know, a lot of people are asking what we use our dry rub on. Now, obviously, pork and chicken are two of the more common things. Also, we've been using on our corn on the cob with butter.
That is.
I'm telling you, this
That's
stuff
wonderful.
with potatoes is fantastic. So 40 years in the making, Tim Farmer's Country Kitchen Dry Rub.
Funding for Tim Farmer's Country Kitchen is brought to you by Emerson Farms Country Store. Something for every member of the family. Ephraim McDowell Medical Center in Danville, Kentucky. Gulf Coast Connection. Seafood straight from the Gulf to you. The Spine Center of Central Kentucky. Wilderness Road Hospitality, Stanford, Kentucky. Visit Frankfort, Kentucky's spirited capital city.